everybody, I'm Stella Chung, and this is The Weekly Fix, the show where we round up all the gaming and entertainment headlines you may have missed this week. Sony has claimed at this year's CES that the PS5 shortage is officially over, plus the new Wavebird-like Switch controller has been unveiled. In the entertainment world, the Joker is pregnant, full stop, and the Borderlands film adaptation is reportedly going into reshoots. New year, same studio, it's news in time.
The PS5 console drought might be over. Now, this news comes to us from the main man over at Sony Interactive Entertainment himself, Jim Ryan, who revealed at Sony CES Tech Conference that the next-gen console has sold more than 30 million units, thus declaring the console shortage practically done. Now, Jim Ryan went on to thank the PlayStation community for being patient over the last 2 years as the company dealt with global demand challenges brought on during the pandemic. Now, I personally don't know how patient I was. I went on Omegle to haggle with PS5 scalpers just to get my hands on one of the consoles. Okay, all right, yeah, and it doesn't look messed or tampered with.
Yeah.
All right, so I will make you all an offer. Freaking ridiculous what I went through and what a lot of you out there that really wanted a PS5 had to deal with purchasing from resellers. But our boy Jim Ryan came through to reassure us all that things are picking up. Now, during the conference, Ryan said, quote, PS5 supply improved towards the end of last year, and I'm happy to share that December was the biggest month ever for PS5 console sales and that we have now sold more than 30 million units through to consumers worldwide. Now, he went on and said that he's confident that anyone who wants one should have an easier time picking one up at a local retailer on a global scale moving forward. Now, this is obviously good news to anyone that has had a hard time getting their hands on one, and for those who weren't so impatient that they had no choice but to deal with frickin' resellers on eBay or kids on Omegle. Seriously, 2020 was a tough year for anyone who didn't manage to snag a pre-order. Now, PlayStation didn't stop at that with this year's CES presentation. Now, the company also revealed a rather radical controller named after the leader of the fearsome fighting team, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Or, I guess for the cultured out there, maybe it was named after the artist and inventor Da Vinci. I don't know. Anyway, codenamed Project Leonardo, PlayStation revealed a new accessibility controller kit it has in development, which is designed to, quote, remove barriers to gaming and help players with disabilities play more easily, more comfortably, and for longer periods on PS5. Now, what's cool about this particular project is Sony worked with accessibility experts, community members, and game devs to fine-tune the controller kit to make sure they tweaked it to perfection. Now, with Project Leonardo, you get swappable components like a variety of analog stick caps and different buttons that come in a variety of shapes and sizes for the user. Now, on the console, you'll be able to customize button mapping and even map 2 different functions onto the same button. And you'll be able to store 3 different controller profiles you can switch between. Now, it's still in active development, so no release date just yet, but it's nice to see Sony follow Microsoft's lead on the accessibility front. Making it possible for more people to play games is always a good thing.
Nixie, a gaming peripheral maker, recently announced a new third-party controller for the Nintendo Switch. It's cute, right? The design is not only reminiscent of the Wavebird, but the company claims that this controller will never get Joy-Con drift. The Nixie Wizard wireless joypad features an array of customization, including 2 remappable back buttons and interchangeable joystick rings. You could, for example, use a round joystick to play racing games or put an octagonal joystick on for a fighting game. Nixie claims the battery life is roughly 6.5 hours on a full charge. One of the biggest selling points for the Wizard controller is the claim that it will not suffer from Joy-Con drift. Nixie says it can achieve this because the Wizard uses a Hall effect joystick. For context, Hall effects joysticks use a magnetic system, meaning that they never physically touch the sensor itself. With Joy-Con drift one of the biggest ongoing issues with the Nintendo Switch, this controller certainly appeals to those looking for a solution to this issue. The Nixie Wizard is available now and will set you back $70. Moving on, an estimated 20 developers who worked on the Callisto Protocol were reportedly left out of the game's credits by Striking Distance Studios. According to GamesIndustry.biz, the individuals omitted from the in-game credits include senior developers, directors, team leads, and a number of employees who worked on the project for over a year and contributed heavily to the game. One unnamed developer said, "I understand if a contractor does a small amount of work for a few months and is left off, but we're talking full-time employees with over a year invested in the title and had a hand in significant parts of the product. That's where the surprises come for a lot of us." According to the sources, Striking Distance Studios had not communicated any policy explaining that developers would be omitted from the Callisto Protocol's credits if they left before the project was complete. Another anonymous source added, game development can be intense, especially delivering a product of this magnitude. You don't always strike the best work-life balance. My issue is those of us who took part in that culture, who put in that time and worked intensely to help craft this product, were punished with a credit omission for not going the extra mile to stay until it shipped. Another disgruntled source echoed the sentiment. Quote, I think these sledgehammer guys lack loyalty and they can be punitive if they detect a lack of it. The credits omission felt like an obvious FU to those who were left out. Somebody wanted to send a message, and the message was, next time have a bit more loyalty to us. However, a number of the sources reported enjoying their time at the studio while giving their own view as to why developers were left out of the near 20-minute credit roll. Another source said, I actually had a great time working there, and I felt I had a great relationship with everyone on the team, up to the C staff and Glenn. I don't have anything bad to say about Glenn. The only time there was some friction was on exit, and I think devs who left were punished with credit omissions. The Callisto Protocol was released last month, and I thought it was just okay. Definitely not up to the standards of the game it's inspired by. Dead Space, speaking of which, we're only 17 days away from that remake. Color me excited.
HBO's The Last of Us show drops this coming Sunday, January 15th, and some fans are clearly really excited to see Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey take on the roles of Joel and Ellie. So much so that there's now a mod in The Last of Us Part 2 that lets you change Ellie's original face to Bella's face. This mod was created by Alejandro Bielsa, who is currently working on Fable with Playground Games as a character technical artist. He was able to modify the neutral shape of Ellie's face to fit Bella's. The mod isn't perfect, modifying the expressions Ellie does in-game wasn't always possible to translate to Bella's, but it's a fun mod to try out if you're excited for the show. The HBO's adaptation of The Last of Us will supposedly adapt the entire first game, though you can expect some changes and new scenes. Personally, while I'm excited to watch this since I love both actors and I think that they have the proper appreciation for the story, I really would have liked to have seen a different part of The Last of Us world covered. Maybe the time between the first moments between the intro of the game and then follow Joel's journey in the game's time skip? Or maybe even follow the Fireflies in their development. Either way, I'm glad we don't have to wait much longer to just see the HBO show. Who knows? If it's a hit, maybe Naughty Dog will release some official Pedro and Bella skins for the games. China's NetEase, game developer and publisher, announced last Friday that it acquired Skybox Labs. Skybox Labs is a Canadian gaming studio that developed Halo 5's Forge feature, co-developed the Bedrock edition of Minecraft for the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4, and co-developed Halo Infinite with 343 Industries. Skybox Labs will operate independently under NetEase, but nothing about the financial terms of the deal were publicly revealed. This acquisition by NetEase is most likely a move made to keep up with its rival Tencent and also expand internationally. Last year, NetEase had purchased Quantic Dream, which was a huge and surprising move. NetEase typically focused on PC and mobile gaming, but it's clear the company is moving more into console games. Hu Zhipeng, the vice president at NetEase, stated that he aims to eventually have 50% of the company's gaming revenue come from overseas. With this latest acquisition, we'll just have to see what NetEase and Skybox Labs co-develop together. Naughty Dog shared new concept art from The Last of Us multiplayer game that was announced last year. Studio co-founder Neil Druckmann said in a blog post that while the game is solidly a multiplayer experience, it will still be a story and character-rich game. In light of the 10th anniversary of The Last of Us, Druckmann said more details will be coming about the multiplayer game and, quote, fun surprises along the way. Druckmann also said, quote, with a team led by Vinit Agarwal, Joe Pettinati, and Anthony Newman, the project is shaping up to be a fresh, new experience from our studio, but one rooted in Naughty Dog's passion for delivering incredible stories, characters, and gameplay. The concept art looks a lot like what you'd expect from The Last of Us, with abandoned structures, a giant cruise ship rotting away docked on some rocks, and overgrown foliage. This is the second piece of concept art revealed for the multiplayer game, with the first being revealed at last year's Summer Game Fest. I honestly can't imagine what kind of game this is going to be. I played a bit of Factions multiplayer from the first game, but the multiplayer and survival game landscape has changed a lot since then. What do you think it'll play like? Let us know. Xbox has had a really rough past year with very few first-party titles released and multiple major delays, but that won't be the case in 2023. Starfield was originally supposed to launch last November, but Bethesda Game Studios delayed it until the first half of 2023. I, like many others, had a lot of doubts that Starfield would actually launch in that timeframe, but the support page for Starfield officially confirms that Starfield will arrive exclusively on Xbox Series X and S and PC in the first half of 2023. We haven't gotten much more information on the actual solid date yet, but Bethesda has been releasing information about the game over the last few months, with the last major content drop being a Q&A session with Starfield's lead quest designer Will Shen. There was actually an interesting portion of that discussion where Shen talked about companions and their roles in Starfield. Shen said, quote, "We've also added in several times where you can ask them to speak for you. So you might have a companion with you and you'll be challenged till someone will tell you you can't get through here, and you can actually turn to your companion and say, hey, actually, could you handle this? And they'll speak on your behalf, and there could be consequences, good or bad, for what they happen to say." As someone who loves the Fallout universe, like seriously, I have a Stimpack tattoo, so I love it. I am super stoked for Starfield, and I'm really glad it's on track, but please, Bethesda, I'm begging you, give us a hard release date.
As part of its GeForce Beyond stream at CES, Nvidia announced that its RTX 40 series is gaining a new GPU in the form of the RTX 4070 Ti. Using Nvidia's new Ada Lovelace architecture, the 4070 is designed to succeed the RTX 3070 Ti graphics cards with improved performance and support for DLSS 3. The GeForce RTX 4070 Ti is the fourth card to be announced for the RTX 40 series, following the announcement of the RTX 4090 and two variants of the RTX 4080. The RTX 4070 Ti will set you back $800 and it's out January 5th. Moving on, Hitman 3 is being rebranded as Hitman World of Assassination, with the entire trilogy's content being streamlined and packaged into one game. World of Assassination will become the only modern Hitman game available to purchase as of January 26th, a day of kings, as Hitman 1 and 2 are both being removed from storefronts. Those who already own Hitman 3 will get an upgrade to the new game for free. World of Assassination will cost approximately $70, not sure why IO Interactive couldn't provide us an exact cost, and includes what was previously known as the Hitman 1 Game of the Year Access Pass, which is essentially all content from the original game, the Hitman 2 Standard Access Pass, all main content from the second game, and the Hitman 3 base game. An additional World of Assassination Deluxe Pack can be purchased for $30, which adds the remaining bits of DLC, including the Hitman 3 Deluxe Pack, the Hitman 3 7 Deadly Sins Collection, and the Hitman 2 Expansion Access Pass. Whew, that's a lot of hits. Those who own this content already won't have to pay anything extra for the rebranded game, and those who own some but not all of the content will be able to purchase the remaining pieces individually, similarly to how it works currently. Players who've purchased Hitman 1 or 2 will also still be able to access and play the games fully despite their removal from storefronts. The developer says, "We are absolutely certain that these changes will have a hugely positive effect on existing players and new players alike. For many players, it will mean free content to enjoy. For others, it will mean significantly cheaper DLC prices. For new players, they'll have a much better experience buying Hitman games." While I really like this Hitman trilogy, it was a bit confusing trying to figure out how to get different parts of it. The top comment on this IGN article from Mikey Havoc 815 reads, "I got one of these games through PS Plus at one point and it was pretty fun, so I looked into the others and DLC on the PS Store and was extremely confused by the myriad bundles and passes and content marked as unavailable due to unlocked game licenses I already had. Glad to see they're simplifying the overall package this way. Agreed, Mikey Havoc. Agreed." And finally, the PlayStation Plus games for January 2023 are Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Fallout 76, and Axiom Verge 2. All three are available today, Tuesday, January 3rd, for all PlayStation Plus Essential, Extra, and Premium members. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order comes at a perfect time to get fans ready for Star Wars Jedi Survivor's release date of March 17th. I also recommend Axiom Verge 2, a Metroidvania with great pixel art and music. And then I hear Fallout 76 is in a better place now. I don't know, not really my thing. And that is your daily fix for Tuesday, January 3rd. I'm going to get back to playing Vampire Survivors because that game totally got its fangs in me over the holiday break. I'm Damon Hatfield, and for all your gaming news, stay tuned IGN.
It's time to take a quick break. When we come back, we have some suggestions on how HBO's The Last of Us can learn from The Walking Dead's mistakes. Plus, we go over the Joker's unplanned pregnancy. I still can't believe I had to say that, but see you in a bit. Welcome back. Eli Roth's film adaptation of Borderlands is reportedly going into reshoots under a different director. But first, the Batman comics have pulled a fast one on us and impregnated the Joker behind our backs. I don't know if I want to find out some more, but here we go.
DC Comics writers are whipping up some weird plots with the latest issue of Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing. Now, in issue 4, writer Matthew Rosenberg wrote a story that saw the clown prince of crime giving birth to a miniature version of himself. Yeah, now it all happened after a confrontation the Joker had with Zatanna after his attempt to steal Gotham's water supply. Now, Zatanna decided it'd be best to cast a spell on Joker where no one would ever have his baby. But the Joker doesn't have a baby, so that particular spell put one in him. An OBGYN looks up the Joker's pee hole, miffed at what he saw, and the Joker throws up some brown substance that morphs into a hideous creature that looks just like him. Now, this is top tier writing and storytelling here, comic book fans. I'm kidding, it's not. It's dumb and I don't like it. Is this what DC Comics is all about these days? Instead of canceling TV shows and movies, David Zaslav needs to take a look at what's going on between the pages of DC Comics and have James Gunn try to flesh out what's going on over there, because it's looking like the Wild Wild West right now. Now, I'm not sure if a plot like this is really gonna sell or resonate with longtime fans of the franchise or the Joker character. I mean, it makes you wonder if DC cares about fans and making money or more about sensationalism to get the internet talking.
It's not about money, it's about sending a message. Everything burns.
Yeah, and at this particular rate, you'll likely burn down the entire DC Comics Foundation with plots like this. Now, hopefully this will be the last time we see Joker Jr., but it likely won't be. And we'll have to wait and see. Also, Arnold Schwarzenegger did it way better.
I'm pregnant.
Now, in more exciting DC news, Colin Farrell confirmed both the start date of production and shooting length for the upcoming HBO Max Penguin series. Now, this all happened while talking to Variety, where the actor confirmed that production on the Batman spinoff will begin in February, lasting for about 5 to 6 months. Now, it's exciting to hear that the series is still on track and didn't go the way of the other DC HBO Max properties in the Bat family, like the Batgirl movie. Now, as of right now, both the Penguin series and Arkham Asylum series are slated for release on HBO Max based on the Matt Reeves Batman universe. Wherefore art thou lawsuit? Now, that's what the actors who starred as Romeo and Juliet in the 1968 Franco Zeffirelli film of the same name are asking. Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting, who were 15 and 16 at the time, are suing Paramount Pictures for their brief nude scene in the 1968 film, claiming negligence and child sexual abuse. Now, while it's been several decades since the release of the film, the actors filed the claim on December 30th of 2022, which was the final date historical child sex abuse lawsuits could be filed under the new sexual abuse claims law in California, which temporarily suspended the statute of limitations on such claims. The actors claim in the suit that Zeffirelli told them there'd be no actual nudity given the camera angles and the flesh-colored garments they were supposed to wear for the scene. But when it came down to the shooting of the scene, none of those things happened, and the director supposedly told them that the picture would fail if they didn't do the scene completely nude. That's pretty gross if it played out that way. But Olivia Hussey surprisingly defended those nude scenes in recent years. In 2018, while speaking with Variety, Hussey said, quote, "Everyone thinks they were so young they probably didn't realize what they were doing, but we were very aware. We both came from drama schools, and when you work, you take your work very seriously." Now, she then went on to tell Fox News later that year, while speaking on why she was comfortable with the nude scene at the time, quote, "I think because it was done very tastefully, and in Europe, it was very different. In America, it was very taboo. But in Europe, a lot of the films had nudity. Nobody really thought much of it." She continued saying, quote, "It wasn't that big of a deal, and Leonard wasn't shy at all. In the middle of shooting, I just completely forgot I didn't have clothes on." At the time of those two interviews in 2018, Olivia was 68. Now in her 70s, Olivia clearly has reconsidered her stance on what took place decades ago on the set of the film in a time long before intimacy coordinators even existed. And while some might consider this nothing more than a cash grab, given the lapse of time and one of the accusers defending the direction on multiple media platforms, it'll be up to the courts to decide on damages that are believed to be upwards of $500 million. Now, there's so much to unpack with this story, and I'm sure a lot of y'all have thoughts on it. So let's discuss it in the comments down below. Now, in other news, Batista is stepping away from the Marvel Cinematic Universe after Guardians 3. Now, we've known him as Drax since 2014, but speaking with GQ, the former WWE superstar speaks on his relationship with the character and the legacy he hopes to leave behind. Quote, "I'm so grateful for Drax. I love him, but there's a relief that it's over. It wasn't all pleasant. It was hard playing that role. The makeup process was beating me down, and I just don't know if I want Drax to be my legacy. It's a silly performance, and I want to do more dramatic stuff." Now, he's definitely suited to do such, and I personally can't wait to see more Batista bombs in theaters. No, not like that. I mean, y'all wrestling fans know what I mean. We're gearing up for HBO's The Last of Us, and with the early reviews, interviews from both showrunner Craig Mazin and director Neil Druckmann, it seems as though we'll be getting a very faithful adaptation of the Naughty Dog video game series, aside from tendrils spreading the zombie infection as opposed to spores. But you know what? That's a very minor change to a seemingly solid adaptation of the franchise. Now, one comparison that's sure to be drawn is to the Walking Dead series, which recently ended its 11-season run last year. Now, much like HBO's The Last of Us, AMC's The Walking Dead had a clear blueprint the showrunners and writers could have used to steer the story arcs and plots. But creator Robert Kirkman was open to the writers of The Walking Dead series changing his source material how they saw fit. That's a bad move in my opinion. In fact, Kirkman said in a Q&A panel hosted by Hey Fandom back in 2020, referring to the writers picking apart his source material, quote, "It seems like it's an absolute nightmare, but it was really great and rewarding to have them go, this story worked because of this, and we can change this way because of that, and this really worked well, and we can make it better by adding this." But for anyone that actually watched the long-running AMC series, there seem to be more subtractions than additions, like the removal of Carl Grimes' character back in season 8. Like, they killed off a very pivotal character to the Walking Dead series, one that lived well through the final pages of the comic book run. Now, Kirkman allowing the very foundation he built to be torn down and played with was a detriment to the series, which is why there was a significant drop-off in viewership. Now, HBO's The Last of Us can avoid this by staying true to the source material and keeping fans of the franchise excited for what's to come, even if we might already know what to expect given the games. Now, messing with what's already been established and creating stories well beyond its source material really killed the Walking Dead franchise for a lot of fans. But it seems we won't have to worry about that with The Last of Us. In fact, Neil Druckmann told The Hollywood Reporter that, quote, "We have no plans to tell any stories beyond adapting the games. We won't run into the same issue as Game of Thrones since The Last of Us Part 2 doesn't end on a cliffhanger. And with sticking to adapting the games only, we likely won't get a lot of seasons of The Last of Us, which is honestly fine. Aside from changing a lot of things fans remember from the comics, The Walking Dead stuck around longer than it really needed to. And the viewership declined possibly due to zombie fatigue amongst fans. And according to review ratings data collected by IMDb by Broadband Choices, the Walking Dead series saw a sharp drop-off in viewership after the 7th season premiere episode where Negan killed both Abraham and Glenn. In the comics, Negan only executed Glenn, so what was the point of killing off Abraham aside from cannon fodder? Like, it was shocking, yes, but for all the wrong reasons. And then Carl was killed off in season 8 after being bitten by a walker, which many considered to be poor writing given his comic book counterpart. In season 9, Rick Grimes was written off the show, and seasons 10 and 11 came and went with a whimper. Now, this is coming from a hardcore Walking Dead fan and zombie enthusiast. Like, I love all things zombie related, but I'm also someone who likes to see adaptations done right in the eyes of the fans. Now, obviously, one of the many things that makes a live show more complicated than a comic is having to account for the schedules and availability of actors, which I imagine had some impact on The Walking Dead's decisions, but still. Like, Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann can avoid the pratfalls of The Walking Dead by not doing things like prolonging storylines to exhaustion and killing off important characters for the sake of shock value. Although the latter part of that statement will inevitably happen at some point in the HBO series given the video games. But it'll be intentional and not because a bunch of writers in a room sat around thinking up ways they could change the source material to give viewers something unexpected for the sake of shock value. The Walking Dead just became AMC's money-making machine with all the different spin-offs it was given, which devalues the franchise and makes it seem as though you're no longer creating shows in this universe to appease the fandom, but more or less so you can make a quick buck off the namesake of the franchise. Now, I'll tell you right now, if Abby from The Last of Us gets her own spin-off series at some point, then there will indeed be riots in the streets. But anyway, what are your thoughts on The Last of Us, and how do you think it can avoid the mistakes of The Walking Dead? Let's talk about it down below. The Borderlands movie supposedly wrapped filming back in June of 2021, but before it hits theaters, it'll be getting some reshoots courtesy of Deadpool director Tim Miller. Eli Roth, who was previously directing the game adaptation, is shifting his focus to a full-length version of Thanksgiving, which got a trailer way back when in 2007's Grindhouse.
This holiday season, prepare to have the stuffing scared out of you. Thanksgiving.
Now, the puppet combo games kind of remind me of those Thanksgiving interstitials. Anyway, as reported by Deadline, Tim Miller, whose last feature was Terminator Dark Fate, will be shooting some additional footage and potentially seeing the long-awaited adaptation of the Gearbox video game to the finish line. Now, there's a minute's worth of footage that was shown to press at CinemaCon 2022, but aside from some teaser images, nothing's been shown publicly. Now, the changing of the guards for reshoots could go either way for the movie. Now, some say it worked for Star Wars Rogue One and Solo, but maybe not so much for the Justice League film. But the public hasn't seen much, so we can't really say one way or another if it'll be good or bad. Now, it's worth noting that Miller is no stranger to video games, previously overseeing some of the very best CG trailers at Blur Studios, and he was executive producer on both Sonic movies. Now, no release date just yet on the Borderlands movie, but we'll keep you posted. Now, how do y'all feel about this? Let's discuss.
I'm Stella Chung, and that was your Weekly Fix. We'll be back here next Saturday with more of the biggest gaming and entertainment news of the week. See you then.